Hey, this is Mark with What I've Learned podcast, your host. And today's show is going to be a little bit different. We're going to bring on our co-host and put him under the microscope. And we're going to question him on some of the subjects that we talk to other people on during our podcast. And so welcome, Grant Kropfeld. And I'm going to say thank you for being here, but you're constantly usually here. So
yeah,
no big deal.
Yep, here regardless.
Yeah. So tell us now that we got you on the spot. Tell us, give us a little bit of a backstory so our listeners can understand and know their co-host.
Yeah, I think after you and I talked, we decided we needed to have a little bit of more of, I think, a backstory on each of us, other than just interviewing some people. But I grew up here in Michigan, but as soon as I graduated high school, I ended up moving to Florida. My family did, and I lived in West Palm Beach for 8 years. I went to Florida Atlantic University when I first moved down there, and quickly got into the golf business. And I got at 16 years old, picked up the game of golf. I hadn't hit a golf ball before that, but was immediately hooked, and that just became my everyday hobby. And then when I moved to Florida, and Palm Beach is the mecca of golf in the world, that's where all the pros live and everything like that. And they have some crazy nice golf courses there. I just started playing more and more, got a membership at a club, and then they were like, well, do you want to work here? And I ended up working there, and actually within a few months became the director of sales and marketing for one of the top 10 public courses in Florida. It was a Jack Nicklaus signature course right there in North Palm Beach. And it was a really good experience. I worked in that position for about 4 years, kind of through college and a little bit past that, and learned a lot in that position in terms of, kind of managing a budget, advertising, sales. I got a lot of good experience out of it. Ended up moving around to a couple different courses after that. Club at Ibis. I actually came back up here for a summer to work at the orchards here in Michigan. And then just as life happened, I wanted to back up a little bit. I, at one point, had started reading books. That was I'd never read a book that wasn't given to me in high school, that you have to read, or college, you have to read this. I would not read for leisure at all. And I picked up the book by Dale Carnegie, the How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that was kind of my first book that I read that was not specific to school. And that kind of just snowballed this, I actually enjoyed that book and I learned something from it. And I wasn't required to learn it or required to read it. And that snowballed into other books and into Jim Rohn, and listened to his audiobooks and things like that. And then I came across Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And that was kind of that where it shifted in my head, where I was never going to become wealthy. I was never going to have that real freedom in life if I didn't change my thought process and what I was doing in terms of just working 9 to 5. And it wasn't even 9 to 5. The golf business is ridiculous. It's 5 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. I can't even tell you how many days I had from 5 a.m. to 11 o'clock at night, and then back again at 5 a.m. the next day. And it's not a great job. If you're obsessed with golf, you just kind of put up with the crappy hours and not the greatest pay. But it's a grind. And I just realized there was a ceiling, and I was never going to be able to achieve anything higher than the ceiling because just how the business is. And I realized I had to move myself from as Robert Kiyosaki talks, from the employee to the investor, business owner, the person that, instead of owning a lot of liabilities, you own a lot of assets that continually make you money. So that's where my shift came. And since then, I was probably 22 at the time, 22, 23, when that shift kind of started to happen in my head. And it really took form when I was late 24, mid to late 24, 25. And I really seriously started reading a lot of investment books and learning as much as I could about real estate investing. And I was looking at investment properties and stuff, and I'm like, man, it's crazy expensive here in Florida to get any investment properties, and to house hack is what my goal was, because it was living in one unit of a multifamily, whether it's a duplex, triplex, or quad, and renting out the others to pay for your mortgage, and that being kind of your first entry level step in, and use an FHA loan. I had it all planned out, but I was like, there's nothing in Florida that I can afford in terms of down payment and stuff to do what I want. And at the time, Michigan came back into my radar and my scope about what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. So I started looking there, and I found a job temporarily as I came back up. I knew it wasn't going to be a full-time thing, but I got a job at Bloomfield Hills Country Club working there. And I found a duplex nearby, and I ended up purchasing that, moving in and living in the top unit and renting out the bottom. There's some long-term tenants in there. Was even able to raise the rent and stuff. And I just went everything kind of by the book. And that stepped me into the real estate realm. And by the end of that summer, from when I bought it, I was like, I'm done with the golf business. Like, this is it. Like, I quit. I'll never go back to golf working again. And that's when I was like, I need to start making the right steps to potentially limitless income. And I knew that real estate was that vehicle to get there. So I started looking for ways to get my foot in the door in real estate. I knew I didn't want to just like jump right in and be like, I'm going to get my real estate license and just start selling. Like I was at least smart enough to know that I wasn't that smart, and that I could just jump right in and be successful. So chances have it, I'm looking on Facebook and stuff, and Mark actually had a job posting for, I believe at the time it was like an ISA, like an in-sales associate. And
Right.
so I messaged him and ended up meeting with him. But after talking and stuff, I think Mark will tell you too, like it just became apparent that wasn't like going to be the long-term goal there. Like it was, the fit was more for, let's get the real estate license, like teach you the game, you'll start learning, get the real estate license, and let's start building. And it really just kind of organically started to grow with us and the MI Sold team. And I think the MI Sold team had only been a thing for a few months before I ended up coming on. And I love that, being able to come in at kind of the ground level, but at the same time learning from somebody that's been in for a really long time. So I think it was we met at like the end of November or something like that, early December. And I just started coming and learning and training. Before I even had my license, I was showing up every single day, Monday through Friday, like 8 a.m. And I was just learning as much as I could, going to as many classes as I could, and then signed up for the real estate exam. I finished the entire course in like 5 days. And I would have taken the exam at like that 6th day, but it was like right up into the holidays, and the testing thing wasn't open until, again, I think like January 2nd. So I got in at January 2nd, had my license, and I was officially a licensed realtor with Keller Williams on January 3rd. So I think I'd officially quit the golf course November 1st. I think was my last day when I ended there. And so within like a 2-month span, I was in the golf, or out of the golf game and into the real estate game. And, they say you should prep for 6 months. And that was like, I was trying to do everything by the book. They say, have enough resources for 6 months while you're getting into real estate, because you're probably not getting commission checks or anything like that. And I think it was from the day I had my license till my first commission check was like 2.5 months. But then I had like 3 closings within like a week and a half, and went like 1, 2, 3. And that just kind of kicked off that whole first year. And I ended up capping in real estate at our company in the first year, which means you've paid your full split to the company, and you get 100% commission after that. For the most part, very few people end up capping their first year in real estate at brokerages. But obviously, you don't do anything alone, and you don't get anywhere alone. And there's a lot more to that. But since then, learning and expanding and growing, and just being in this business has driven me to read more, learn more, do more, just constantly in like a growth mindset. How can I be better? How can I do better? How can I make more money? How can I grow this business? How can I open future businesses? How can we expand? And now my brain is just constantly churning. It's not like it used to be. I used to be that 9-to-5er where I was just I thought I was going to get a job, and in 40 years I was going to retire at 65 and go and play golf until I retired. And even though I had a little short stint where I thought I was going to play professional golf, played some mini tour events and stuff, and realized I was nowhere near the level of those guys on the PGA Tour. I realized that if I wanted to build and live the life I truly wanted at the end of the day, I had to learn more. I had to do more, and I had to get out of my comfort zone and rethink a lot of my prior thoughts. And my parents, both of them, they're very hard workers. My dad has busted his ass his entire life to provide for us. And I'll never say a bad word about him or anything, but he was never taught how to be wealthy. And that was just not a thing that he was ever, he was never taught. And because of that, he couldn't pass that on to me. He could only teach me what he knows. And he taught me a lot of great things about working hard and building things and doing that. But he was never taught how to grow that wealth. So I had to go on a path of my own and kind of break away and relearn everything. And to this day, like, my dad doesn't even really understand all the stuff that I talk about or what I do. And that's fine, but that's just because I've put the time and effort into seriously trying to rewire how I think about stuff. And that's I think that's the biggest thing. When you read the book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, that's his biggest thing, is you have to think the right way in order to be rich. You can't, as Jim Rohn always said, the money will meet you where you're at, and you have to be a millionaire before you can make $1 million. You're not going to make $1 million and not be a millionaire. You have to have that mindset. And that's why so many,
you're right on that.
So many people, that have built businesses or become millionaires, self-made millionaires, and maybe they lost it all. They went bankrupt or something happened, were able to rebuild it because their mindset was a wealthy mindset. And, the average wealthy person has 7 streams of income, and the average middle-class poor person has 1 to 2. And that's the big difference, I think, is thinking about how can I make more money? How can I make my money work for me in multiple ways? And
that's
I think
awesome. What I also noticed was, it kind of sounds like, just kind of overviewing some of your backstory, is that while you were working in West Palm Beach in the golfing industry, you were hanging out with some heavy hitters, and you were, letting that conversations that were going on kind of sink in. And I think it started to get you your wheels turning. You wanted to look at yourself doing something bigger and better.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I think, one of the biggest blessings that I had was getting in the golf business. And I'm at some of the courses I was at, like the club at Ibis. I mean, we had guys like Ben Carson there. We had like Lou Dobbs. We had many, many big name people that were members there. And we had, like, I think the number at one point was like 20 billionaires that were members there. And when you go out and golf with these people, because as like an assistant pro, we would go and you play rounds with them and play in like these member events and things like that. So you're always playing with the members and getting to know the members. You realize pretty quickly that their conversations are completely different. Growing up, conversations that my dad had with his friends were more like work oriented, like the fun stuff. He was into boat racing, so about boat racing, things like that. And the conversations that these people were having were about like their businesses and money and like, hey, like buying this company or buying this company and taxes, and like the conversations were just completely different. And I started to notice, especially as I was reading and learning, I started to really notice like they think differently and they teach their kids differently, and they were probably taught differently growing up from their parents about how to think about money and how to make money and how to make that money work for them consistently for the rest of their lives.
Well, that's what you want to do at the end of the day. Why would you want to work to death for nothing to show per se?
Yeah.
I mean, like the 9-to-5 paycheck is getting really old and stale. I think a lot of people are pretty much done with it if they've ever had any kind of ambition or drive to start a business. One of the cool things was that you were talking about is that when you and I met, I know we advertised for an inside salesperson position and we had that interview. Just talking to you prior to you even getting in the industry, I was kind of thinking you remind me of my younger self, just because of all the things you're talking about and things that you're focusing on, the things that you care about, and you've already imagined yourself at that end goal. You already kind of know what it looks like. And that game Cash Flow, based off that book, is a lot of fun. It will teach you enormous new ways of thinking and looking at cash flow and being out of the rat race. And it's a great game. A lot of people may not enjoy the game as much because they feel like they're just paying bills and it's like a real life. But in reality, once you start looking at it and start figuring it out, you start thinking totally different. Like you said, those conversations at the golf course or wherever you're at start changing, and they're about different things, bigger things that ultimately just keep leading you back to that phenomenal amount of freedom to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like people say, you do what you like best. And so when you go to work, it doesn't feel like a job, so you can enjoy it. That's pretty much what we try to do. And the way you can do it, it doesn't matter what business you're in per se, but if you're out there serving people and really helping them, if your goal is to help them first, hard work, money does follow. It's not like rocket science or anything like that. You can pretty much make money doing any great business, doing a great job, having a great reputation, and having great reviews online. One of the things that I noticed that you said was you came in every day from 9 to 5 and you just absorbed everybody talking and working. And that helped you understand a lot more, a lot faster. That's exactly what people do when they are doing a residency in a medical field. They're just following the doctor around, learning and absorbing and doing some of the grunt work. And it's probably not that fun. It kind of sucks a little bit. But you are advancing your career by tremendous leaps and bounds because you're actually listening to somebody and getting mentored and being that internship. One of the things that's lacking in a lot of businesses for a lot of people is that they won't humble themselves to slow down and just listen to someone who could give them some very useful advice. And I think a lot of people come into this business thinking like, great, man, I can't wait to make a ton of money. But that attitude doesn't last long in this business. It doesn't help you prolong and grow your business into anything because your only sole purpose was to make a quick buck.
Yep.
Right. So like you said, you take that time to start investing into reading a lot of books and you start investing into yourself. That's what it means to invest into yourself. When people, advertise this theology on it's me first, and this is what's going to make life better. Actually, what makes life better is if you invest into yourself so you can provide other people with more value. If you can't bring value to the table, what's the attraction of you even being in the picture? Yep. At the end of the day, you got nothing to offer. Right.
Exactly.
And I think that's the misunderstanding with a lot of folks is that if you start focusing on just bringing value and investing in yourself, that's why being healthy minded, healthy balance, healthy body, sleeping well, and doing all these things. That's why all these things matter so much. If you ever sit down and play that game Cash Flow and you imagine a lifestyle with all those things, and you see like the bills like pile up as you have children, and it's a funny game because people start hemming and hawing when they realize they've had a baby. But really, it slows you down, and it allows you to either become a victim of the situation, or you can start becoming a lot more efficient. And because you practice something, you get better and faster and perform it quicker. Mm-hmm. And then that results in you're still on your track to get to that freedom.
Yeah, I
like what you did with it.
I still have the Cash Flow game on my phone. They have the app, and I still play from time to time when I'm bored. I played it a lot for probably like a couple month period, and I was just so big into it. And I think if you watch these podcasts that we're doing and you listen to some of these people that we interview, so many of them epitomize what I'm talking about right now. And
it's out of their comfort zone. That's a problem.
Yeah. And
out of their comfort zone. So they don't want to get off their comfortable couch and stop playing video games. And that's not a bad thing. But you've got to get out of your comfort zone. If anything good in life is going to take a ton of sacrifice and hard work. Good old fashioned hard work didn't go anywhere. You can cover it up and lipstick it as much as you want, but you're going to come back to the original plan and foundation. You've got to bust your butt. You've got to work hard, and you got to learn a lot. You got to absorb a lot, and then you can give a lot. And then your customers and clients and whatever business you're doing there's going to be value.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, you have to be able to bring that value. And I've always been the proponent, don't be the smartest person in the room. But if you're in a room with a lot of great people, you're never going to be invited in if you don't have at least something to bring that's valuable. So you don't want to be the smartest person, but you still got to bring something of value for those people. Like you can't just walk in and not have something to offer yourself. Right. And to be around those people, they like that old saying, you are the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
And that's true. It's true.
Absolutely true. Because it's
true.
It's the conversations and the thought processes that you have. Like if you're hanging out with a bunch of people who are just poor-minded thinking, meaning they don't have any real growth plans in the future, that's what you're going to be talking. You're going to be talking about spending money and buying stupid things and drinking on the weekend. And you're not going to be talking about investing and starting this business and how do we become better as people. Like the conversations are completely different when you're with those kind of people. And if you're somebody, my advice is if you're somebody that's looking to move up in your social status, in your financial status, and just be a better version of yourself, you got to find people that are already at a place that you want to be at in 5-10 years. Like you have to start getting with those people. You can't stay the same. You can't keep doing the same things and expect a different result. That's just,
and I always make jokes about there's certain people I see in a group and some of them are good. Some of them are bad for each other. And I call it the clique. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But it's the comfort zone because you know that they won't maybe judge you as hard or you're just comfortable. They know everything about you. You've farted in front of them at a barbecue, whatever it is, right? So you don't want to get out of that clique. It's so comfy.
Yep.
But the moment you decide to do that and you start making friends with other people, and that's very healthy, by the way, because you start surrounding yourself with someone that's way above even a goal setting or a vision that you had for yourself. And that person starts talking to you and showing you things differently. And that's when your mind starts opening up and saying, man, I'm going to go home and read a chapter of a book every night. I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm going to go work out twice a day. I'm going to, shrink down this amount of sugar out of my diet. And I'm going to do this, and that.
Yep.
So,
I mean, I have gone through phases of learning so much about different things. And right now I would say like the phase of my life is, I'm pushing 30. So like my body, my health, and my energy, my like daily energy has been a focal point of me lately in terms of, I'm trying to absorb as much information and apply as much as I can in terms of being able to wake up every day and be able to give that 100% every day. If I'm eating crappy, if I'm sleeping bad, if I'm, just not focused and I can't put 100% out there, I'm going to be less than, and I'm not going to be able to achieve things. Maybe I do eventually, but not as fast as I could if I can apply 10%, 15% more a day than I normally do. If I can knock out 10% more a day. I mean, time is money. Time is valuable. And if your energy's low, you're wasting it. And so that's like been my focal point of this time. But it's funny because I talk to a lot of people, especially younger people. And even this past weekend, I had a conversation with a kid who's 23, 24. And he was just kind of asking me some questions about real estate and stuff. And it ended up literally, I was just giving him like book after book after book after book. And I was like, get this one, get this one, get this one, and get this one. I was like, start reading it. And we had a long conversation. I think I really kind of started to shift his, at least his curiosity into, he just really, he grew up again, same thing, like just thought he was going to be working the rest of his life, and you save a little bit of money and eventually retire. And I was like, man, that's not the way. Like, you seem like you have some ambition and some drive to do some stuff, and you're talking about it. I was like, I'm going to give you the best advice that I can to start to push yourself down the path of your best self and being as successful as you can possibly be.
It's there for the person that wants it.
Yeah. And Chris Rock, the comedian, he made a great point when he said, I realized when I was poor and my car would break down all the time. He said, if I just stood by the side of the road and tried to wave people down, nobody'd ever stop. He said, as soon as I started to push my own car, people would stop. He said, people like to help people who are helping themselves.
Who have at least started helping themselves.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing is, I can't ever not want to help somebody who's asking for help, who's like really trying to better themselves.
It's so much easier to help somebody that says, I really need your help.
Yeah.
You get a phone call from a friend, hey, I really need your help. You typically show up a lot quicker than you trying to, I don't know, stalk his Facebook and figure out if he needs your help or not. So it's a lot easier if someone's asking for help. And I think one of the mind shifts about what you're talking about to be successful is don't ever be afraid to ask for help, because you're actually only hurting yourself, because a community gets a lot more done than a single person does.
Absolutely. And
it's a fact.
And again, if you're out there trying to help yourself first, and you're really putting yourself out there and you're doing the work, people are going to want to help. That's just how, especially successful people, people don't get this. Like the rich, the successful that get all the bad name, they want to see people succeed. They truly do, but they're not going to put themselves out there, and they're not going to go the extra mile for somebody that's going to be lazy and going to slack off and not really put them the effort needed into what they're giving them. Because nobody wants to waste their time with somebody that doesn't really care at the end of the day.
Have you been thinking of selling your home? Maybe buying a home? What about investing in some real estate? Well, if you're looking for a top-performing team to help you with that, then what you're looking for is at mysoulteam.com. Now, this real estate team has a servant's heart and a proven ability to negotiate on behalf of you, their client. They care about you and your community. So why don't you support them in their local business by visiting mysoulteam.com or calling or texting at 248-213-8606. That's 248-213-8606 for mysoulteam.com. That's mysoulteam.com.
So, my advice is, if you want to change your life, you have to start putting the effort in first. You have to go start reading, go start watching YouTube videos, spend less time on TV and Netflix and video games. I'm not saying you can't do that, but spend less time doing it.
You just got to have a healthy balance between whatever you do. Like it's just got to be a allotment, basically. You've got to have a healthy amount of it. As soon as you start binge watching like 9 shows and it gets out of hand, and it happens to the best of us, to all of us, you get wrapped into this cool story. You just can't let it go. And you're like, I'm not that tired. I got my second wind. I'm going to stay up for a little longer. Yep. And then your whole next day feels a little shot because you don't have the same energy, and you're giving everyone else the half-ass version of yourself. And now you're kind of sucking at everything, because there's the value that you would have brought being 100%. Now you're only at 50%. So a lot of people don't view it like that.
The funny thing is we live in one of the terms that's talked about, and it's one I always like to talk about, is the scarcity versus abundance mindset, where the average poor person or middle-class person has a scarcity mindset, meaning they think that everything's going to dry up, everything's going to evaporate, everything's like limited, where the rich people have an abundance mindset, where they see just money is everywhere. They constantly looking at, there's always opportunities. Money's going to be there. It's not going away. You just have to seize the opportunity because it's there. It's the difference between, the mega rich that just own like multiple companies, and like Elon Musk, he's such an abundance mindset because he's constantly like, we can do more. We can do more. There's so much opportunity out there. We can do solar panels. We can do internet. We can do cars. We can do SpaceX. We can do all this stuff. And he just doesn't stop because he knows there's an abundance. There's nothing but the only thing limiting him is time. And on the subject of time, I came to this conclusion years ago that we as average humans, the funniest thing to me is when somebody says, I just don't have time for that. And I say, yes, you do. You probably have too much time is the problem.
Yeah, that's the biggest joke you tell yourself.
Yeah, I don't have time.
Completely not true.
Wait, you have 8 to 12 hours a week to watch Netflix. Is that what you're saying? You don't have time to read a book, but you have plenty of time to binge watch.
Look at the analytics of somebody spending time on social media just looking at other people's stuff.
Oh yeah, just the time.
Ridiculous.
I spent when I was going through like these phases. I had a phase where I literally was tracking the amount of time I was doing things, and it opened my eyes to what I was wasting time on. And that's, I'm reading. I think on average, I think I averaged it out of the last 6 years. I average about 30 books a year that I've read. And when I'm in my car, don't get me wrong, I listen to music still, but the majority of my time in my car is spent listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks, and sometimes just like throwing YouTube on, not looking at it, but just like listening to whatever they're talking about on YouTube. And when I say I read a lot, I haven't read a like fictional book or like an enjoyment book in terms of, I'm not reading like a novel. I'm reading things to learn things. Like I'm reading books about taxes. I'm reading books about investing. I'm reading books about energy management, money management, and time management. I'm reading books that are going to make me the best version of myself. I'm very much a proponent. Let's bust your ass right now while we're young, so that I don't have to like wait till I'm 65. And hopefully by 45, I can start doing all the things that I would plan to do. If, I had a great retirement plan at 65, I can go start traveling at 45 and I can go see the world and take a month off and go to Europe and take another month off in a couple months and go to Australia and New Zealand. But I know I have to put the work in now. The average person just does the bare minimum in terms of they get a job, they do the job, and the job's easy. The problem is, yes, jobs can be physically tasking and even emotionally tasking. I'm not downplaying like the difficulty of actual jobs, because being in the Army, I know how arduous a job can be when you're rucking around for 16 miles with 80 pounds on your back, and then you got to like do missions in the middle of the night. You haven't slept for 48 to 60 hours. Like that's a job, and that is tough, but that takes very little like thinking, and it's just directed. Most jobs, it's like you show up, this is what you do at this time, like accomplish this, you can go home at 5 and you're going to get your paycheck. And it's the security, which is great, but you're working for somebody else's goal. Whenever you're working at a job, somebody else created that job space for you because they created a business and hired you. So somebody else has that goal, somebody else has that plan, and you are just a pawn in his plan. And, unfortunately, not everybody can be rich. Society doesn't work if everybody's rich. That's unfortunately not how it happens. But we live in such a great country and a great society that anybody can be rich. That if you put the effort in, you work hard, and you spend less time wasting time and more time investing your own time, you're going to make it somewhere. You can't backpedal if you're constantly reading and applying. If you're reading and if you're learning and applying, you're going to get somewhere. You're going to fail a bunch, but you're going to get somewhere. You're never going to backpedal. If you're just not doing either of those, you're going to backpedal. You're going to be, why do we have a health crisis in America? Why is obesity so rampant in America? Like morbid obesity is ridiculous. Lack of education, people going bankrupt. All these things are happening because people get in this just like cycle of comfort. and they don't like
I
to
agree with you on that. I think there's
uncomfortable.
yeah, I agree with you on that. I think there's two things happening there: obesity and finances, particularly. Um, there's a huge opportunity to correct that. If they started early in high school and said, "Here's some finance classes. Here's how taxes work," people could plan LLCs, S corporations, and all that good stuff in advance, and not be, you know, paying so much out. But also, they would also kind of realize how they need to manage their finances. Like, there's another interview we're listening to the other day, and you're talking to somebody who's over 35. They're a 1099 comedian, and they didn't even realize that you've got to put away money for taxes. Like, come on. At that point, I mean, there should be a point in education where that should be covered. How can you be fully through a process of education and still not know how to manage your life? Because you can't be successful with that component missing. And when it comes to obesity, you can't, like you said, your energy level, if it's not good and you don't feel well, if you don't feel well, everything feels like crap. Everything seems like it's just not important, and you don't care. You don't care.
Depression is so closely linked to that, to your health.
Yeah, and I haven't ever realized and understood why that, like, every food item has to have sugar added to it and all this stuff. I think there's a lot of food companies that need to be people need to fight back and demand what they want. And I think people need to speak up, like, hey, we want healthier food. And I think, of course, it's a choice you can make, but I think there's a lot of companies that are just getting away with it because people just accept it.
Yeah, and it's I won't go too deep into it, but the arguments, again, it's just like saying I don't have enough time in the day. The argument has always been for years, like, well, healthy food is just too expensive for like poorer people. And I'm like, well, then don't go buy the iPhone 12. Like, you have an iPhone 10 or an iPhone 8 or whatever. I'm not an iPhone person, but the poor people, the biggest thing, and it's finances, health, all this is mixed. If you don't change the thought process, nothing's going to change. You can hand somebody who averages making $30,000 a year, you can give them another $50,000, or you can double their salary. Let's say you give them $30,000 more a year. They're not going to take that money and go and invest it and try to make more money with it. They're going to spend every penny on more dumb shit. They're going to go buy the nicer car. They're going to go upgrade their house instead of saying, you know what, I've lived on $30,000. I'm going to continue to live on $30,000. I'm going to take this $30,000. I'm going to learn how to take this $30,000 a year and turn it into $100,000. And then I'm going to learn how to make that $100,000 into $1 million. It's not easy, but it is wildly, wildly possible.
It's simple. Also worth it too. It's worth it to learn it.
And it's simple too. And the thing just a lot of these are like little things I've learned over the years. And this is the What I've Learned podcast, but things are always simple, but not easy. And when people say, oh, like, I'm happy, money doesn't make me happy, or money isn't money's the root of all evil, all those things that they say, and they say, money doesn't make me happy. I don't need that much money. I'm happy with what I've got. And then I go, okay, you have family members. If your family member got sick and you couldn't take care of them financially or pay for them financially, like, are you okay with that? Are you okay with not being able to, like, if God forbid your child ever got some sort of, rare disease or something that they're in the hospital and hospital bills are piling up, or like, are you okay with that? Like, are you okay with not being able to financially support and care for the people that you want?
I want to comment to something what you're saying right now. That's also along the lines of priorities, where people need to realign their priorities. I think COVID helped a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
You're describing a situation where having reserves makes sense. We've been saying this, and experts have been saying it forever. Have 6 months, 9 months, 10 months of reserves. Prepay some of your bills in advance. Like, maybe you don't need to buy the jet ski. Maybe you need to rent it so that you can have that 10 months of reserve. And listen, if you start exceeding that 10 months, 12 months of reserves, or whatever point you start feeling like, hey, I feel really comfortable, I feel really good, I feel really confident, because you gain another level of confidence of having all those savings that can come in handy at a later point, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's only so much stuff that you actually need. But like, for example, a friend of mine said like, hey man, why don't you go buy this car? And I said, here's a different mindset. I've bought a lot of cars in my life. I've enjoyed a lot of different cars that were great. But I said, I don't want to maintain it. I don't want to service it. I don't want to get new tires for it. But if I go on vacation for 4 days and I rent that car, I can get fulfilled. I can feel content. I'm good. So I think there's a certain mindset where I'm not saying you have to do that, but what I'm saying is there's alternate ways to enjoy things. You don't necessarily have. That's why there's Airbnb. That's why you can go stay on the ocean. You're not buying the condo on the ocean, but you can stay there for a couple of days, and it gives you something that you normally couldn't do if you can purchase it, right?
Yeah.
So there's ways to fulfill some of your desires, but not kill your bank account.
Grant Cardone says, I don't know if this is an exact quote, but this is along the lines of what he says. He says, own all the properties that you rent and rent any properties you live in. Basically saying like, give yourself the freedom to be able to live where you want by renting properties, and then own a bunch of rental properties that keep giving you income. Like only own what pays you.
Well, let's visit that analogy or that scenario for a second. Let's say you own 10 properties, okay? And each month, because of the income you have from all these 10 properties is enough to live off of, right? Let's just say you make 10 grand a month and you're paying yourself a salary of 5 grand. And you know what I'm talking about because you read the books on taxes. So you've got 60 grand coming in. Could you not off a 60 grand salary raise a small family and live on your own and rent properties? You could spend $20,000 of that per se and live in a different city, in a different place, or different ocean front, or different climate that you wanted to enjoy and experience in your life. I'm just giving an analogy. It's very wild, but not a practical one that a lot of people would do. But I'm just saying you could do that.
Oh yeah, and
it's possible.
A great book is called Set for Life. I don't remember who the author is, but it's one of those mindset books again, and a lot of strategies in terms of living below your means, like wildly below your means. So many people, again, that poor mindset of like, I'm making $100,000. I have to spend $100,000 instead of like, well, I'm making $100,000. Can we live off of 35? Like, can we live the bare minimum and now take this other 65,000 and start investing it and making that money work for us? Like, what if for let's say you made, between you and your spouse made $100,000 a year. If you were able to live off of $35,000, meaning like in his book, he talks about buying like a multifamily property so that you're basically living for free because the tenants are paying that mortgage down for you. And sometimes if you like have a 4-unit, usually you're actually making a profit off of it. Buying cheap cars, like ones that run, but you're not spending money on like the brand new car or buying a new car every 3 years, like your cheap cars. And you're just living very, very cautiously. If you did that for 5 years and you saved that money, or let's say you just invested it to make at least some, you don't want to just let it sit. You want to at least invest it if you're going to do it for 5 years. But 65,000 times 5 years, let's say you had that $325,000 you have that saved up. Now you can go and take that. You could buy an apartment complex that's going to make you money. That would pay for your house that you want to live in. Then you could buy, that's enough money to buy a lot of times to get a loan, or at least go in on a loan for like a McDonald's, or to own a franchise of some sort that makes you money every single year. Like this is what Robert Kiyosaki is talking about when he talks about having assets and not liabilities. Liabilities are when people are buying the expensive cars and the expensive house, all those things, because if you stop making money, they're all liabilities. You're liable for the note on every single one of those. Assets are something that if you didn't do anything with it, it's going to continue to make you money. It's those things that make you money while you sleep. Those are what.
Yep. You're right.
Does the thought of buying a home stress you out? Call Elementary Lending. The mortgage process can be stressful and intimidating, but we are not your parents' mortgage company. Our cutting-edge technology has simplified the mortgage process, and our licensed experts are available 24/7 to educate you from start to finish. Call 8332-APPLY now and get an answer in minutes. The process has never been easier. That's 8332-APPLY now, or apply online at elementaryLending.com. Elementary Lending, home financing simplified. Equal housing lender, NMLS number 1321438.
Assets.
You know what? What you just described is one of the most important, crucial key points to grow from beyond that, from wherever you start. So you said start having that mindset where you live off a small amount of money, you become very minimum. You're very careful the way you spend money. Like you said, you're not getting the higher end cars, you're not racking up, all of the luxuries.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you save enough money to get the McDonald's or the Chick-fil-A or whatever franchises, that's going to make you in turn, a great amount of assets and grow your wealth. You still have to keep that same mindset.
Oh yeah,
because you evolve.
It doesn't stop
evolving. You keep evolving. Yeah. You don't stop.
Yeah.
You don't stop evolving to the next stage. Like, for example, go ahead.
Then you build off of it. Yeah, like you're saying, like the next stage is you take that and then you go, okay, now let's build again. Like let's do it again, but bigger. And that's what I love about real estate and growing businesses and stuff like that, because it's like that Elon Musk concept. He started with Tesla.
Exactly what I was going to say.
He started with Tesla, and then now it's just like, what can we do? Like we have all this infrastructure and we have all this knowledge and we have all this technology. Like now they're building solar roofs. They're sending satellites. His goal is to have free available internet for everybody in the world, like from satellites. He's trying to pump enough satellites out there that he can provide internet for everyone in the world. His tunnels that he's building, the SpaceX program where he's flying ships around all over the place, and all these things that they have a monkey right now. They have implants in this monkey's brain that they're figuring out how he can control playing video games with his mind. Like a monkey's playing video games with his mind right now. That's where they're at. Like he just doesn't stop. And that's the kind of mindset you eventually get. Like it'll happen. I don't know a wealthy person, like a rich person, that doesn't have that, like, what's the next thing mindset. Like it just becomes that you just get in that groove. Like just like when you're in that groove of the laziness and the scarcity mindset, when you get to that abundance point and you start seeing like John Clear talked about in our other podcast, he's like, when you see that one check that like wows you, that's what pushes you to that next level. When you hit that level of success or that level of like,
right,
money, like you're like, holy crap. And it pushes you.
It helps you grow. It helps you grow. Like, that's how I started 18 years ago in real estate. I bought a condo. I was a bank teller. Okay. I'm like 21 years old. And I bought a condo downtown. It was new construction. It was awesome. You get the first time buyer, small down payments, deposits, and all that stuff. Put that money down, and I just made that decision to buy it. After owning it for a little while, I just realized like where my friends were at and the things we were doing didn't really fit into that downtown lifestyle as much as I thought it was going to. Then I decided to rent it out. And this is just in a span of like a year and a half or something like that. It's a short period of time. The renter was fine, paid rent on time, no problems. And then I had asked my dad at that point, because he's been a broker for 40 years, and he said, hey, the value's gone up this much. And I'm like, really? It's only been like a year and a half flies by when you think about it. A year and a half is nothing. So what I'm trying to say is that no matter what you're doing, if you're doing nothing, that time is still flying by.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I mean, a year just literally goes by like that. Not if it's COVID, though. That goes by pretty slowly, painfully. But you will notice that time that just flew by. And when I decided to sell that condo, the profit margin, and I looked at the salary I'd earned for a year being a bank teller, and I compared it, and I said, I'm not doing anything of value.
Yeah.
I definitely like the outcome of selling the condo and earning a profit. So that's where I started to kind of decide, I think this is something that's going to be a lot more enjoyable. And it's going to be that freedom. I like to travel. So
yeah. And one of the things I realized, just in terms of like success and money, was I've always been a big proponent of helping people. I was raised in a family that, they helping people and caring for and about people has been just a staple point. So I'm always looking for opportunities to volunteer, to help. I just think that if you're a good person and you have the ability to, I think you should do it. I'm not saying you have to. That's me. I think that everybody should help people that are in a position that's not as fortunate as themselves. With that though, I realized volunteering at these places and doing these things, and it was great. Like I still do it. But what I realized was how much more could I do if I could just stroke them a check for $100,000, things like that. It was one of the places I volunteered at, one of the homeless shelters that they run, ended up closing down 2 years ago. It was last year on Christmas Eve. And I got a notice, and they had to close down because they ran out of funds. They just couldn't raise the money. They were short $600,000. That's an entire facility in the dead of winter on Christmas Eve that can no longer take homeless people in. And I can go and volunteer there all day, every day, but I wouldn't be able to make the impact that I could if I could just stroke them a check for $600,000. Right. And I realized that day I was like, if I can make making money a bigger priority right now than just helping people, again, I still help people and I don't take away from that, but I knew that if I can make that kind of money where I can just give it away like that, I can affect so many more lives. I can help so many more people. Money is a vehicle, and you can either use that vehicle for selfish reasons, or you can use that vehicle for, it's kind of like you're given money and you can go and buy a Lamborghini for yourself, or you can go and buy a bus and drive people around that need help, right? You get to choose what you want to do with the money. Money is not evil. Money is not the root of all evil. The lack of money usually is the root of all evil. People do things because of a lack of money. They kill, they steal, they do bad things because of a lack of money. You don't see, yes, money can cause greed and can cause bad things because of that. But the lack of money is usually where you see the most evil being perpetrated, right? In the low income areas, people being killed over a couple $100, right? That's evil. Right. Oh, and that's not money. That's the lack of money because they don't have the money. And I'm not going to get into the whole debate on that in terms of how to get the money, but I'm just saying that, money can solve a lot of issues. And if you don't make that your a priority, because if you're thinking oh, money's evil and I don't want to be rich because I don't want to be one of those evil rich people. That's a terrible mindset to have. And that's
you don't have to be evil and rich.
Yeah, that's
like you just said, you can take money, because when you evolve, we were giving those examples. Let's say you started off with multifamilies and then you bought franchises. You're going to keep making more money.
Yeah.
So at that point, you have to start deciding hey, am I going to start sponsoring some orphans that will never have the chance to go to school in a third world country? You can do whatever you want. That money could be used to bless so many lives and to accomplish so many good things. That satisfaction for you is gonna outweigh the amount of money, because there's only so much crap you can buy. Just FYI. I think people have already started to realize that there's only stuff you can buy, and you get to a point where you're I'm good on stuff, man. I've got so much stuff. Hopefully you can get to that point where you realize that. But there's a point where you start evolving and you can make so much that you can't keep up your consumption. So then you do have to find a way to satisfy what's important to you. What are you going to do with that extra money? Because you're gonna do something at some point.
Yeah, that's, again, you think about leveraging, you leverage your money just like you leverage your time and stuff. And you can only help so many people with 5 hours in a day. You can only go to a homeless shelter and feed so many people yourself for 5 hours. But if you spend 5 hours, not saying you shouldn't do that, but just, again, saying if you spend another 5 hours trying to make money, maybe you could feed another 100 people, right, that you don't even get to see. I just think that there's so many positives to, really looking for success in life, So kind of coming full circle on this all in the terms of what I learned in our podcast and what we how we structure it and stuff. The biggest thing of what I've learned is always be learning and never give up. You're going to fail a lot. You're going to try things. The never give up thing, you look at Amazon, you look at Microsoft, you look at these big companies, they're constantly spending millions of dollars on research and developing terrible ideas or things that fail, things that completely flop. and they are fine with it. They're never going to stop because they just need that one that takes off and explodes, right? Like all their stuff doesn't have to succeed, but they're going to keep trying it because they just need one to succeed. And then the other ones that they've lost $50 million on don't matter because they just made $1 billion on the one that succeeded. And you have to think about in that mindset, like you got to invest yourself. You got to invest some time, some money, things like that, and different stuff. Things are going to fail, but as long as you don't let that like determine you getting up the next day and trying again, you're going to succeed. It's just a matter of time. It's not an if, it's a when. And it's all in the mindset. And I can't stress it enough. Your first goal, if you're listening to this and you haven't, and you're still in that like 9 to 5 rut of thinking, but you want more than that. If you want that, don't get me wrong. I'm not bad mouthing anybody that is completely comfortable and wants that.
We're some people, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about if you have a drive and ambition for more. If
you have a drive and ambition for more, you have to work on your mindset first. You have to alter the way that you're thinking about things in life, and that will take you. That has to be your building block. That has to be your base to your building that you're going to build, your empire that you're going to build. You have to start the foundation, the fundamentals of thinking the right way, and that's really what I've learned is if you think the right way, you're going to be able to do the right things. Think and Grow Rich, right? That's the Napoleon Hill's big thing of his book. So that's another book I recommend. I got a whole list. If you ever want a list of books I recommend, I got them all. So I got hundreds of them.
Okay. Yeah. We'll put some links into our podcast YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And obviously you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, and pretty much any place you can find a podcast. So thank you, Grant. This was fun. This was, I think, informative for our listeners to kind of know what our co-host is all about.
Yeah, we'll be doing a flip-flop here soon. We'll
change it up. We like changing it up. We like changing it up. Yeah, we like to keep it exciting and interesting. So thank you for being on here, and please like and share our podcast with your friends and family.
Yeah,
if there's any requests that you have for questions or anything like that, please find us on YouTube, and you can send us a message there. We're also on Facebook. You just simply look us up, and you can send us a message there as well.
Yeah, we have some great people that we're interviewing here coming up too. So be on the lookout. Be watching. It's a blast to get to talk to these people, and I'm always learning stuff. Like we're interviewing, it's not like I'm interviewing them just to interview them. Like I'm learning. I'm writing this stuff down.
We're learning right alongside our listeners, which is the fun part. We're all doing it together. It's a collective effort.
I've rewatched our podcasts because there's things that I'm like, we were talking about. I'm like, I'm going back through and I'm re-listening to what we talked about. And that's, again, that growth mindset. You got to always be learning.
You always have to be learning. It's I know it's ABC, always be closing, but you can't get to ABC unless you are ABL. Always be learning first.
As Gary Keller said, you have to work to learn before you can work to earn. So learn first so that you have that foundation, and then it all grows from there.
Yeah, take advantage of any kind of mentorship and things that are around you from people that are successful, and make that like you said, those 5 people you hang out with could be 5 people you learn from. It could be any version of it. It doesn't have to be a certain way. Make it work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Make it work for you.
Absolutely.
So, Grant, just in closing, is there any piece of advice you would give to our listeners? Because, COVID's been tough, and there's been changes in business, and people are really aggressive buying stuff, whether it's a house or toilet paper or whatever it is. Any advice you want to give to listeners now who are thinking of acquiring multifamily or other investments?
Yeah. So right now, like you alluded to, it's a tough market, but it's not an impossible market. Nothing's ever impossible. And it's actually like, if you can find it, it's great. You just have to be ready. Preparation and learning. Like I said, if you're prepared, the early bird gets the worm, right? So if you truly want to start investing and start that process, you have to learn and understand what's going on in the market so that you can best prepare yourself to be able to purchase what it is that you want to purchase, right? You can't come in blindly or like lax. Like, there's an aggressive market. So if you want to buy a multifamily property or anything like that in the investment, you got to be like dead nuts, ready to go, all ducks in a row. And there's no laziness about it. But if you are, you're going to be successful, right? And you're lining yourself up. You've learned about the market. You're ready for it. You're prepared, and you're ready to go. You're ready to pull the trigger. So don't be deterred because of the market. It's not going to slow down much anytime soon. It might taper off a little bit, but economics wise, and from all the data that I've pulled and everything I've learned, like, this is not a 2008. I promise you, this is not a 2008. Nothing's crashing. The inventory is way too low. The buyers it's too high. Unemployment is too low. There's not enough factors to make this bubble or anything. It's not even a bubble, but to make this decline. It'll slow a little bit, start to taper off, but it's still going to be a growing market over the next 5 to 10 years, I think.
Exactly, because you don't have the lax lending guidelines of 2008. First of all, not everybody walking with a pulse is getting a mortgage.
Exactly.
Right now, mortgages are tough and they're more stricter. Mm-hmm. So let's keep that in mind when you do your analysis. That'll help you.
So don't say like, oh, I'm going to wait 5 years to invest because the market will be like, that's when it'll be low. I promise you, from all the research and everything that I've done, and you even look at talk to these experts and stuff, they're saying the same thing. They're like, the numbers, they're not like they were, and it's not gonna slow. 2008 was an anomaly, and we're back on track to another 10 years of growth. So if you're wanting to do it, pull the trigger. Don't wait. Don't think like, oh, I'll wait when it slows down. It's not gonna slow down like you think. This ain't going anywhere. It's not. We're in it for a while. So that's my advice to you. If you're looking to get in the market, jump on in. Let's do this.
All right. Thank you. That's very informative. That's helpful. There's some good tips in there you can take away and work with, and ponder those, research them, put it in your plan. And like I said, send us any messages or any questions that you have through our Facebook or through YouTube. We'll be happy to answer them and get you included in the next podcast where we can answer those questions as well in that moment. So thanks again for listening to What I've Learned podcast. This is your host, Mark Blair, and your beloved guest, Grant Krautfeld, with us today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.